Hey, how's it going? I wanted to make a video on why to pursue self-knowledge. This is a video, it was the first video I did on my original YouTube channel back in 2013. And well, I lost public record of those videos. I think some of them have been archived somewhere. I, of course, have them on a backup hard drive. I think I have everything I've done on a backup hard drive. So that's real nice. I've done a lot of videos. I think my previous channel was up around 500 videos, 600 videos, something like that. So I've made a lot of videos over the years, but I did want to give this topic another crack. It's been a while, so I wanted to look at this idea of pursuing self-knowledge, why it is important to you. This is, I think, one of the basic sort of tenets of my point of view that I've espoused for a very long time. So I do think it is worth getting into here in the early going. I like doing these videos where I'm reacting to stuff on the timeline, but if you don't have a lot of the backstory, if you're new to this channel, you know, you're going to miss some of the context of what I say, and you're not going to be able to appreciate the icing on the cake, so to speak. So yes, why to pursue self-knowledge? I think the first thing that springs to mind is you don't want to live your life deterministically. And what do I really mean by that? Because people would say, well, there's no such thing as determinism. We all have free will. Just by arguing against determinism, you are proving free will. So just give it a crack, and that proves no determinism. So, but what I really mean by living deterministically is living according to programming. So each of us is loaded up with an operating system. And this comes out of our childhoods. This comes out of the parenting that we received, a lot of it to do with our first 5 years of life. And one sure sign that you've had a rough go in the first 5 years of your life is that you can't remember much of it. And it's good, it's useful to remember these early messages that you received. What were the trespasses against you? What were the justifications for those trespasses? What justifications did you internalize? This can cause a lot of problems. It does. It causes a lot of problems for people. And you don't have to live in so much misery, but it's up to you to do something about it. A lot of this programming, also when we're young, obviously the large part is parents, but any authority figures around us when we're young, then as we get a bit older, and if we're exposed to electronic media, it depends on everybody's situation. Then we're looking at cultural figures, we're looking at political figures, we're also looking at people in the schools. The schools are loaded up to the gills with leftists, with people of a liberal persuasion. And at this point, it just means domination and the flattening of all hierarchies through force and wealth redistribution. And any way that can be accomplished just makes it's to make everyone miserable, right? That's what the authority figures in the schools have in their heads. And then because people in these institutions oftentimes are not subject to market competition, they tend to over time degrade because they protect their paychecks. And so in a sense, if you're a young innocent person and you mean well, you have a heart full of joy and a heart full of innocence, you're going to be chipped away at, you're going to be aggressed against, you're going to be dominated by all these figures, all these people in the world. And they're going to change your programming, usually verbally. They're going to convince you of things that aren't true. And so you're going to emerge into adulthood with a head full of ideas that make you miserable because they don't correlate to reality. So you're going to live in a lot of misery until you undo the programming. And self-knowledge is, it can be a written journal, it can be a typed journal, it can be an audio journal, it can be self-reflection, sitting somewhere or walking somewhere and reflecting. It can be done in meditation, it can be done in a very direct sense. The personality has parts to it. You can speak with those parts in a dialogue. People think that's like crazy time, but it does lead to more unity in the personality. And another thing to think about is that when you are attacked, when someone successfully dominates you and you internalize some sort of justification for your domination, something nice goes away in that moment. Something is lost. Usually it's joy, vigor, motivation. A lot of people have their whole childhoods programmed. They have a very dominant parents in terms of deciding what the kid is going to do, who the kid is going to be. You know, some of these third world sort of striver parents, they want their kid to be a doctor, and they'll decide, okay, they'll decide at age 3, this kid is going to be a doctor. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen where people are complete and total shut-ins because their parents isolate them, and these parents only give the kid like one sibling or none, and then the kid is just locked away and has to just endure. Just has to endure, and they're treated like an employee in Office Space, the movie Office Space, and they've just got to do homework, and then they've got to be quiet and not do anything else. And this is very common. This is very common, like third world and second world parenting, and it flits up into the first. I mean, the first emphasizes choice. There's gradations of parenting too, and we can get into that at some point. I do want to get into that, but I've seen some terrible things anyway. And people suffer, and then they lose their joy, their joie de vivre, their je ne sais quoi, their special something. They lose it, you know, and that can be very hard to regain, and often it's a trail of tears to get back to something like that. It's very difficult to parse through the memories. It can be useful to have someone in your corner, like myself, like my essays, the things I write, because sometimes you can be convinced of some conclusion. You can be convinced of some maladaptive algorithm, basically some sort of pressure or expectation from outside, and you can bring that into your own work with yourself, and then you can plateau. You can not make progress for a very long time. And the way I'm looking at it, you know, I'm approaching my 40s now. I'm way late in my 30s now. I've done a lot of work, and it's just become easier. And my personality remains pretty malleable. I think there are some things I've decided about myself, but those were hard won, and they were won through reflection. But I've maintained a kind of plasticity, a kind of openness to experience, and a relatability that a lot of people give up because they choose, right? They choose in this language of the world, which is domination or submission, which you're going to be. You know, if you crumble when you're young, then you're going to be a submissive one. And maybe you've been programmed that way. Maybe you had an overly aggressive parent. Or maybe you're joining the ranks of the aggressive, and you've been trained to be sort of predatorial and power acquisitive, power seeking. And so, because of this programming, as an adult, you're locked into pathways that are almost like mimetic. They've been sort of described, or they've been outlined by evil for a very long time. It's going to be very easy to go into one of these pathways. You can get a lot of positive feedback. You can earn your living this way, and you're locked in. And then, so when you come into contact with somebody who's curious, somebody who adheres to the scientific method, somebody who has a grasp of reality, you're going to have a lot of defenses up, and all this makes a person very miserable, you know. Or you can get some. Let's just say you go through some crazy programming or some abuse. That's crazy programming. Something to do with romance. You know, you've got a mother that is a devouring mother, and then you're just socially inept, and you're completely unable to talk to women as an adult. Or say you're a woman and your father was perverted, and he looked at pornography, and he checked out your friends when you were a teenager or something like this. Then you will pick a man with low self-esteem, with low confidence, who covers up for these things in himself because he's ashamed of himself and can't come to terms with his own history and his aberrant programming that he received therein. So that sets you up for a life of bad intimacy, if any, Sets you up for a life of looking over your shoulder and wondering. Not being able to trust your husband. You know, it runs the gamut. So breaking these things down, getting in there and breaking these things down is challenging. And it is really a choice that is very much at odds with the prevailing winds of today. And if you've only just heard of me, if you're just finding me, or I fell off your radar when I got banned originally and I'm back on your radar, I mean, that's for a reason. You know, the prevailing winds, there's no support for this. There's no popular support for this. You saw a little bit among the boomers, but then they mixed in some radical egalitarianism. They disregarded some certain scientific facts about differences in people, and they lost a lot of momentum. And they also damaged the credibility of some of this more introspective ethos that they found. And so in a way, it is up for a new generation to blaze a trail. And I've been working on that. I've been working on that for publicly now for 12 years or so, maybe a little bit longer. And so I think that's a good initiation into why pursue self-knowledge. I do want to put more stuff that is self-knowledge based here. I think it would be of tremendous value to you. I think it could, if you were to give it a chance, it would give you a lot of perspective, and it would allow you to make better decisions. It would allow you to choose better who you're going to be with the rest of your life, what you're going to do for a living, how you're going to regard others, how you're going to work with others, how you're going to treat others, how you're going to raise your kids. What's the best way to do that? There is some objectivity going on here. And how do you make sense of all the messaging that's out there without feeling inundated or like you've got to fight? There's a different way. It's a self-knowledgeable way. And there's so much more I could say, but I'm going to leave it here. I like to give myself these primers, think on a topic. I've been thinking a bit on this topic since yesterday because I did want to get this video here early out of the gates on this new YouTube channel. Lost so many thousands of people being censored on the previous one, so I'm going to rebuild some things. And I want to give fresh takes on a lot of stuff. I've delineated a lot of my worldview previously, but then I'll get to feeling dissatisfied, and then I'll want to do a new take, and this is my latest take on why to pursue self-knowledge. Very good. If you enjoyed that, I suggest you head on over to stephenfranzen.com/donate. Put a little cheese on my plate. I would appreciate it. Smash the thumbs up. Be sure you sub if you haven't already. Much more to come. It's a beautiful day out. Good energy. Wanted to share it with you. I'll talk to you soon.